Qatadat ibn Da'amat al-Sadusi, who was a student of Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he said, I will never question a person's aql. I want to find out someone's aql who can't speak properly. If your aql has not guided you to speak properly, I don't need to know if you're wise or if your IQ level is high. That was what the Arabs believed in. Eloquency, speech, talking properly. Are we all together, brothers? And making sure that you speak high level and you, وَلِذَلِكَ brothers, wallahi, Allah is my witness. My children, just like I teach them the Quran, I teach them shi'r, poetry. I made my children memorize the mu'allaqat as-sab'ah. All of Imru al-Qays's poetry, Zuhair ibn Abi Sulma, Al-A'sha, Antara, all of them. I have to memorize every single one of them. Talking about hundreds of lines of poetry. Are we all together, brothers? Qasidatul Yatimiyya by Ibn Zurayq. They're only 10 years old. They have to memorize. I feel like it's as important as learning the religion of Islam. Learning shi'r is important, brothers. Arabic poetry is a must. You have to give time to it, brothers. Because there is where you find the meaning of the Quran from. Are you all together, brothers? Umar radiallahu anhu, he saw a man who prayed, who led the salah, and he said, وَأَذَانُ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى النَّاسِ يَوْمَ الْحَجِّ الْأَكْبَرِ أَنَّ اللَّهَ بَرِيءٌ وَأَذَانُ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى النَّاسِ يَوْمَ الْحَجِّ الْأَكْبَرِ أَنَّ اللَّهَ بَرِيءٌ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ وَرَسُولُهُ. That's what the ayah is, right? This man recited it as وَرَسُولِهِ بِالْكَسْرَةِ. Then what does it become with a kasrah? It means Allah is free from the messenger and the disbelievers. Allah is free from the messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the disbelievers. So a Bedouin man, as the poet said, وَلَسْتُ بِنَحْوِيٍّ يَلُوكُ لِسَانَهُ وَلَكِنِّي سَلِيقِيٌّ أَقُولُ فَأُعْرِبْ. A Bedouin man who didn't study جاء زيد, جاء is a فعل ماضي مبني على الفتح, زيد is a فاعل مرفوع بالضمة, who didn't study any of that. And he's an Arab poet, Arab native speaker, came into the masjid and heard this man recite the verse وَأَذَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى النَّاسِ يَوْمَ الْحَجِّ الْأَكْبَرِ أَنَّ اللَّهَ بَرِيءٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ وَرَسُولِهِ. He heard him read that. He said to him, is Allah free from the pagans and the messenger? Allah, if that's the case, I'm also free from Allah and His messenger. The messenger and the disbelievers. The matter reached Umar ibn Khattab that there's a man in the masjid saying that he's free from the messenger. Then Umar called the Bedouin man. He said, what happened? He said, why wouldn't I know? Allah said in the Quran. Umar said, what verse? He read the ayah. Umar said, that's not how you read the ayah. The ayah is what? وَرَسُولُهُ. Allah and His messenger are both free from the disbelievers. Are we all together, brothers? Just by a kasra and a dhamma, the entire meaning changed, did it not? That day onwards, Umar radiallahu anhu, he said that the Quran and the Salah cannot be led by a person who does not know the Arabic language. He has to know the Arabic language. Are we all together, brothers? A person has to know the Arabic language. So when he does a mistake, he knows it. Does that make sense, brothers? So a person needs to study and learn this religion very deeply. Wallahi, brothers, the Quran, the meaning pops out for you once you learn the what? Once you learn the Arabic language. Are we all together, brothers? And I believe at this time that we're living, we need to push our children to this. I mentioned the other day to you, Abdul Malik ibn Qurayb al-Asma'i. He said, ثلاثة فاحكم عليهم بالدناء. 3 people, when you see them, straight away, without talking to them, straight away say they are low. 3 people. Straight away, degrade them basically. Who are they? From them he mentions, hey, what was it? إذا وجدت رجلا, if you see a man يتكلم بالفارسية في مصر عربي, if you see a person who speaks Persian, in our situation English in an Arab country, yeah, then judge them and say, are we all together, brothers? Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, you know Imam al-Shafi'i, right? Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. You know Imam Shafi'i, right? You guys don't know him? You know Shafi'i, right? Imam al-Shafi'i left everybody and went to the Bedouins of the tribe of Hudayl and spent years just by hearing them talk. Everything they said, he wrote it. He memorized their poetry, thousands of poetry. And then he came to Baghdad and Malik ibn Anas and started to study. And they asked him, why are you doing this? Why are you writing all of these poetry in Arabic? He said, لأخدم الفقه. So I can serve fiqh. So I can understand fiqh, right? ولذلك الإمام عبد الملك بن قريب الأصمعي, he saw Malik, Imam Shafi'i. Shafi'i was a kid. He saw him and he said to him, I heard you memorize the ash'ar of the people of Hudayl. I heard you memorize the people of Hudayl's poetry. He said, yes, I did. He said, can I write it from you? Some of the copies, they say, he said to him, can I read it on you and you tell me if it's right? Abdul Malik ibn Qurayb, he's an imam in the Arabic language. I'll tell you guys a quick story of Abdul Malik ibn Qurayb. Abdul Malik ibn Qurayb al-Asma'i, he was an imam fi al-lugha, and he was also على عقيدة أهل السنة في باب الأسماء والصفات. His aqidah was very good. But there was another imam of his time who was also strong in the Arabic language, but there were things between him and Abdul Malik ibn Qurayb. His name is called Abu Ubaidah Ma'mar ibn al-Muthanna. Listen to the story. Wallahi, when you hear these things, you're like, wow. The ruler called both of them. He said, can you both come to me? So they both came. Abu Ubaidah Ma'mar ibn al-Muthanna and Abdul Malik ibn Qurayb. When they both came to him, the ruler has a beautiful horse. Everybody knows this horse. This horse's value is very high, expensive. So he says to Abu Ubaidah Ma'mar ibn al-Muthanna, he says to him, what have you written regarding horses, poetry? What are the things that you've said about? Are we all together? One of the greatest scholars when it comes to poetry, he's not a scholar, but one of the poets who mastered horses in his poetry is Imru al-Qais. Imru al-Qais, وَقَدْ أَغْتَدِي وَالطَّيْرُ فِي وُكُنَاتِهَا. If you go to that poetry, Imru al-Qais is a master of describing horse, the way it breathes, the way it walks, the way it runs. He goes in great details regarding it. So what happened? The ruler says, hey, Abu Ubaidah Ma'mar ibn al-Muthanna, what have you written on horses? He said 40 volumes of poetry and words I've gathered on horses. And he said, okay. What about you? Abdul Malik ibn Qurayb al-Asma'i. What about you, Asma'i? Asma'i said, only one volume. I've only got one volume on horses. So who looks big? Abu Ubaidah Ma'mar al-Muthanna, he's got more. So he says to Abu Ubaidah, since you've got more, go and touch the horse and tell us each part of the horse and then tell us a poetry on it. He said, I haven't memorized anything on it. Everything I've written, I've just written it from the people I've heard it. I never memorized it. Okay. He just said, I gathered. He said, what about you, Al-Asma'i? Asma'i did this. He folded his arms, both, because he knew today was his day. It mentioned he went to the horse. He started from the hooves of the horse. He went through poetry until he got to the tip of their head of the horse. Every part of the horse, he will describe it, what it is Arabic, the different dialects, what they call it, the poetries that are being gathered in it, every single thing that was needed. The ruler said to him, this horse is yours, keep it. So, and it cost, some horses cost millions, brothers. So, Al-Asma'i, he sat on the horse and he used to ride it. Guess what he said? Whenever I wanted to anger Abu Ubaid, Ma'mar ibn Muthanna, I would say, can I come visit you? And I'll take my horse with me. And I'd meet him with that horse. But the point, brothers, the moral of the story is, I'll tell you guys a story that's mentioned. Some scholars, they weaken it. Rather, to be honest, the majority of the scholars weaken it. There was a man, the effect that a poet had on the Arabs and the way that they used to see it. The Prophet ﷺ, in the Battle of Badr, he killed a man who caused the Prophet ﷺ so much harm. This is the battlefield. The Prophet physically killed him, they said. And he died. He's the only man, they say, that the Prophet killed. Oh, there's different stories and difference of opinions. But his daughter, and some of the scholars, they say, no, this was his sister. She sent a letter on poetry to the Prophet ﷺ, describing her situation and what she felt about what happened to her father. And she said, Ya rakiban inna al-uthayna madhinnatun fi subhi qamisatin wa anta muwaffaqu. That is long poetry, I don't want to go through it. She explained what she felt in that line of poetry. The narration mentions, فَبَكَى النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ حَتَّى بَلَّتْ لِحْيَتُهُ. The Prophet cried until his beard soaked. And then he said, if I was to see that poetry, I would not have touched him. If I had seen this poetry, I would not have touched him. We're all together, brothers. I need the language, brothers, and being able to speak is something we don't give importance to. We don't even teach our children to talk properly. We're all together. Our children, they speak the way they want. We don't give importance to the way that they speak. I'm saying to you, brothers, make sure you teach your children how to speak and their tongue. Correct it for them. You know why? Because when they grow up and they go into the society, they need to be able to articulate themselves in the most appropriate way and speak maturely. Very important. The leaders before, Harun al-Rashid, his children, who did he bring for them? Imam al-Kisai. Imam al-Kisai, you all know Imam al-Kisai, right? Imam Ahli al-Kufa in the Arabic language. The reason why he was named وَأَمَّا عَلِيٌّ فَالْكِسَائِيُّ نَعْتُوا لِمَا كَانَ فِي الْإِحْرَابِ فِيهِ تَسَرْبَلًا. They call him Kisai because he wore a cloak in Umrah or Hajj. He didn't wear a ihram. But he was a big Imam. He's one of the 7 Qurra, صح? One of the 7 reciters of the Quran. He personally taught the children of Harun al-Rashid. Back in those days, they were called mu'addibun. So you'd have to spend a lot of money for your children to be taught how to walk, how to talk, how to pick up the cup, how to sit down, what not to do, how not to do it. We don't teach our children that, sah. We don't give them that. So inshallah ta'ala,